Last August, I had a row of pepper plants that looked finished, yellow leaves, no flowers, the kind of plants most folks would yank and toss on the compost. I gave them one of the natural feeds Daniel taught me. 8 days later, new growth. 3 weeks later, peppers. I'll be honest with you, I'd seen this work before, but never that fast. So today, I'm sharing 10 natural fertilizers I learned from my Amish neighbors here in Lancaster County, ranked from the gentle weekly feeds up to the one I use when a plant is genuinely on its way out. Stick with me to the end because the one at number one is what brought those peppers back, and it costs about 40 cents to make. All right, let me set this up before we start counting down. Every one of these 10 feeds I'm about to share with you is something I've tested on my own land for 22 years. After Daniel and Ruth taught them to me, every single one is made from things already sitting on your property or costing pennies at the grocery store. Daniel hasn't bought a bag of fertilizer in 50 years, and I'll be honest with you, his soil is the best on our road. Most American gardeners reach for a box of 10-10-10 every spring. Daniel reaches for a bucket and a shovel. Here's how I've laid this out. We're counting down from number 10, the gentlest weekly maintenance feed, all the way down to number 1, the rescue brew that brought those August peppers back. Stick with me because numbers 4, 3, and 2 are the ones I use in regular rotation, and number 1 is the one I only pull out when a plant is genuinely on its way out. Number 10, used coffee grounds. This is the gentlest feed on the entire list, and it's the one I tell beginners to start with because you cannot mess it up. Every Saturday morning, I take a week's worth of grounds out of the coffee can on the counter and rake about 1 cup into the top inch of soil around my acid lovers, peppers, tomatoes, and the blueberries down at the south end. Not buried deep, not piled up against the stem, just scratched into the surface where the worms can find it. I started saving grounds in 2008 after Daniel mentioned in passing that he never threw any organic matter away, ever. By year 3, my blueberry yield had doubled. That's not a guess. I weighed them. The grounds feed the soil slowly. They hold a little moisture, and the worms move them down for you. You don't pay anything, and you don't haul a bag home from the hardware store. Now, while coffee grounds work slowly over weeks, our next feed targets one specific problem that ruined half my tomato crop one summer. Number 9, eggshell calcium water. This is one I should have learned 20 years before I did. You take the shells from about a dozen eggs, crush them up by hand, or run a rolling pin over them, drop them in a gallon jar of rainwater, and let them sit for 48 hours. Then you pour about a pint of that water at the base of each plant every 2 weeks. The calcium pulls into the water slowly, and the plant takes it up the way it would take up rain. In 2011, I lost half my tomato crop to blossom and rot. Every other fruit had that black sunken spot on the bottom. I went to Ruth that August, almost ready to give up on tomatoes entirely, and she walked me out to her kitchen, pointed at the jar of shell water on her windowsill, and said, "I haven't had blossom and rot in 30 years. I've used eggshell water every 2 weeks since, and I haven't either." From a fix that solves a specific problem, our next feed is one Daniel uses to push flowering crops into producing more fruit. Number 8, banana peel potassium soak. Daniel has a phrase for this one. He says, fruit feeds fruit. Bananas are loaded with potassium, and potassium is what plants pull on when they're trying to set flowers and hold fruit. So you take 3 banana peels, drop them in a gallon of water, and let them soak for 4 days on the back porch. After 4 days, you water that liquid in at the base of any plant that's flowering: tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans. I noticed Ruth doing this with her pole beans every July, just pouring the brown water out of a milk jug at the base of each pole. Her beans climb 12 feet and don't quit until frost. I've copied her exactly, and mine do the same now. 3 peels, 1 gallon, 4 days. Pour at the base when the flowers start. That's the whole recipe. Daniel laughed at me the first time I told him I'd been throwing banana peels in the trash for 30 years. Now the next feed is one Daniel showed me back in 2005, and it's the one that finally got me to throw away the Miracle Grow. Number 7, grass clipping tea. This one is fast. Fresh green grass clippings have a surprising amount of nitrogen, and if you steep them while they're still green, you get a quick lift on anything that's leafing: lettuce, spinach, kale, the brassicas. 1 heaping handful of clippings per gallon of water. 3 days, no longer, because after that, it starts to smell like a swamp. Pour it on at the base. I switched to this from Miracle Grow back in 2005 after Daniel watched me mixing up a blue watering can full of the stuff and said very quietly, "Bill, your lawn is making the same thing for free." That stopped me cold 20 years later. That bottle of blue powder is long gone, and the grass behind my barn is still cutting and steeping the same way. Use it while it's green. Use it within a week of mowing, and don't let it sit longer than 3 days. From a fast nitrogen feed for leafy crops, our next item is a slow release feed for the heavy feeding brassicas and tomatoes, and it comes straight out of my wood stove. Number 6, sifted wood ash. I burn wood for heat from October to March, and what comes out of the bottom of that stove is one of the best slow-release feeds in this entire video. Wood ash carries potassium and calcium, and the brassicas and tomatoes love both. I sift it through a piece of window screen to get the chunks out, and I sprinkle 1 tablespoon around the base of each plant twice per season. Twice, not weekly. Wood ash is alkaline, and too much will sour the chemistry of your soil. Never on potatoes because it pushes them toward scab, and never on blueberries because they want acid soil, not sweet. Daniel told me one winter that his grandfather had a coffee can next to the wood stove for exactly this purpose, and the can went straight to the garden every spring. That's 100 years of the same practice on the same farm, and here's something to file away. Wood ash is the same kind of slow-release boost that the #1 feed delivers in a hurry. Same idea, different speed. Hold on to that because it matters when we get there. Number 5, dandelion and weed tea. This one made me laugh the first time Daniel showed me because I'd spent 15 years pulling weeds and dumping them in the burn pile or hauling them to the back fence. Daniel walked over one afternoon while I was hauling a wheelbarrow, looked at it and said, "The weeds you pulled are still good for one more job. Here's the recipe. A 5-gallon bucket about 3/4 full of pulled weeds, dandelion, lamb's quarter, plantain, chickweed, whatever you've got. The one hard rule is no seed heads because you do not want to brew yourself a future weed problem. Cover the weeds with rainwater, put a board on top to keep the smell down, and let it steep for 2 weeks. I'll be straight with you. After 2 weeks, it smells like a barnyard, and your wife will let you know about it. Strain it off. Dilute 1 part tea to 10 parts water, and pour at the base of heavy feeders." I started doing this in 2007. In the first season, I noticed my squash plants holding their dark green color into late August for the first time in my life. Weeds are just minerals the plant pulled up out of the subsoil. You're returning them the long way around. Number 4, Comfrey leaf tea. Daniel calls this his potassium booster, and once you've used it on tomatoes and peppers, you understand why. Comfrey grows along Daniel's fence line in a long stand he's never planted and never has to. He gave me a root cutting in 2006, and the clump I started from that one piece is now about 4 feet across at the back of my herb bed. The recipe is simple. Chop a 5-gallon bucket of comfrey leaves until it's about 2/3 full, cover with rainwater, put a lid on it, and steep for 7 days. Strain off the liquid, dilute 1 part tea to 4 parts water, and pour at the base of any fruiting plant about every 3 weeks. Comfrey roots run 6 feet down, and they pull up potassium and trace minerals most surface roots will never reach. And here's the thing, this one is also one of the optional add-ins to the rescue brew at #1. If you've got comfrey on hand, you can fold a handful of leaves into the bucket. Tuck that away for a few minutes from now. Number 3, Ruth's lighter compost tea. This is the one Ruth calls her every Tuesday feed. Daniel does the heavy brews, Ruth does the steady ones. Her recipe is 1 shovel of finished compost. And by finished, she means it crumbles in your hand and smells like a forest floor, not a manure pile. Dropped into an old onion sack mesh bag and lowered into a 5-gallon bucket of rainwater. The part most folks skip is the oxygen. Ruth stirs it vigorously twice a day for 3 days, hard enough to make a vortex in the bucket. That stirring keeps the brew aerobic, which is what feeds the good microbes instead of the bad ones. After 3 days, pull the bag, squeeze it out into the bucket, and pour the liquid undiluted around the base of any plant in the garden once a week. I started doing the Tuesday brew on Ruth's schedule in 2009, and that's the year my garden stopped having an off week. The whole rotation stayed even from June through September. Number 2, aged chicken manure tea. This is the strong rotation feed, and it is the closest cousin to number 1. Daniel keeps a tea barrel behind the chicken coop year-round, a 50-gallon drum he tops up as he goes. The recipe at home is 1 shovel of fully aged chicken manure per 5 gallons of rainwater. And I want to be clear on aged. Fresh chicken manure is too hot. It'll burn a plant down to the stem. Daniel's manure sits under a tarp for at least 6 months before it goes anywhere near a brew bucket. Steep 5 days, stirring once a day, then dilute 1 part tea to 5 parts water before applying. Use it on heavy feeders, tomatoes, peppers, brassicas, sweet corn, about every 3 weeks during peak season. The first time I used Daniel's barrel water on my own tomatoes in 2004, I had fruit on the lower trusses that was bigger than anything I'd grown before. And one more thing I want you to hold on to. Number 2 and number 1 share the same base, same shovel of aged manure, same rainwater. Number 1 just adds the one ingredient ingredient that turns a feed into a rescue. Now, if what I'm walking you through here is making sense, and you're starting to see how the Amish do this differently than the way most of us were taught, I want to point you to something. Every feed on this list only works as well as the soil it's being poured into. That's the whole reason I wrote chapter 4 of my book, Building Pest-Proof Soil. It's the biology piece, why a teaspoon of healthy soil holds more living creatures than there are people on Earth, and why those creatures are what actually turn these brews into food the plant can use. The book is called The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. It's $17 at backyardbillbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV right now, grab your phone and point the camera at the QR code on screen. Take your time. I'll wait. If you're on a phone or a laptop, the link is right there in the description. This is for folks tired of fighting the same pest problems season after season who want a system, not another tip. All right. And number one, the feed I told you costs about 40 cents to make, the one that brought my pepper row back from the dead. This is Daniel's Rescue Brew. Here's the recipe. Exact. In a 5-gallon bucket, 1 shovel of aged manure, the same base as number 2, 1 tablespoon of unsulfured blackstrap molasses. That's the 40-cent ingredient, and it's the only thing in the bucket you have to buy. Fill the rest with rainwater. Stir it once a day for 5 days. Then dilute 1 part brew to 4 parts water and pour it slowly at the base of the plant in trouble. Here's the mechanism in plain language. The molasses is sugar. Sugar wakes up the bacteria and fungi already in the soil. They eat, they multiply explosively in about 24 hours, and as they multiply, they unlock the nutrients in that manure faster than steeping alone ever could. The plant gets a flood of bioavailable food in a day or 2 instead of a week. Daniel put it to me this way one evening: the bugs in the soil eat the sugar, then the plant eats the bugs. That's it. Now, the pepper row from last August, bell peppers, yellow lower leaves, no blossoms, finished looking by the first week of the month. I poured 1 full watering can, about 2 gallons of the diluted brew, at the base of each of the 6 plants. 8 days later, I walked out with my coffee, and there was pinhead-sized new growth at every node. 3 weeks after that, I picked the first peppers off the row. I finished the season with 14 pounds off those 6 plants. I'd watched Daniel use this on tomatoes before. I'd never used it on a plant that far gone. 2 warnings: never on seedlings. It's too strong. Never undiluted, and not in the rotation. This is the rescue feed. Use it weekly, and you will burn plants. Use it once on a plant on its way out, and most of the time, you get the plant back. Before I let you go, I want to come back to one thing. The rescue brew at number 1 is dramatic, and that's fine. No, sometimes you need dramatic, but the real goal is a garden that never needs rescuing in the first place. That's what chapter 2 of the book lays out, the 5 defense layers. Layer 1 is healthy soil and healthy plants, which is the foundation every single feed on this list serves. The other 4 layers are what keep the pests from showing up at all. It's the full 30-day protocol I built out of what Daniel and Ruth have been doing for generations. Backyardbillbooks.com. QR code is on the screen if you're on the TV, or the link in the description if you're on your phone. Go ahead and pull that up now. Take your time. No rush. I'll be right here. This is for folks who respect the way Daniel's family has been doing this for 50 years and want a system, not another tip. So those are the 10 natural fertilizers. From a cup of coffee grounds on a Saturday morning all the way down to the 40-cent rescue brew. Daniel and Ruth are making most of these brews this week the same way they have for 50 years. Pick the gentlest one, number 10 or number 9, and try it on a single plant this weekend. Drop a note in the comments and let me know how it goes. I've got a video coming next on how Daniel builds the compost pile that ends up being the base for half of the feeds on this list, so keep an eye out for that one. I'll see you in the next one.